Good morning and welcome to the Business Lens of Rapid Television Abuja. It is great to have you with us on this special edition. Yes, you're going to find out why it's the special edition anyway, where we're going to be looking at the numbers, the figures, and how it directly affects you and your businesses. I am Divine Alex. So let's begin with the key business trends that matter right now, starting from the headlines. So we're beginning with the first one, the new data from the National Bureau of Statistics that says Nigeria spent about 7.65 trillion naira importing food and beverage products in 2025, with processed food alone accounting for 4.17 trillion naira, while primary food imports made up another 3.49 trillion naira. And sliding into the ultimatum story that says the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has given owners of private transmission substations connected to the national grid 45 days to obtain an independent electricity transmission network operator permit, in a move they said is aimed at tightening oversight and improving grid reliability after repeated transmission line trips reported by the Nigerian Independent System Operator. Now to the part where everyone is definitely going to love. That is the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, saying that Nigerians in the diaspora can now obtain their national identification number through accredited enrollment centers abroad. This, they say, is a move expected to ease registration for the country's more than 17 million citizens that are overseas, as the NIN becomes mandatory for banking, for SIM registration, and passport services. Next up is the Securities and Exchange Commission. Nigeria has launched its first regulatory fintech clinic, opening direct engagement with Nigeria's rapidly growing financial technology sector as the Commission moves to align innovation with investor protection under the new Investments and Securities Act of 2025. And on the part that touches every one of you and I is that of the Nigeria's fuel market that is shifting rapidly. We've been discussing this for ages now, I think for the past 1 week or so. Now, the federal government has suspended petrol import licenses for a second straight month after data from the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority showed domestic refineries now supply about 92% of the 39.6 million liters of petrol that was distributed in February, with the Dangote refinery alone producing 36.5 million liters, even as petrol prices briefly climbed to about 1,175 naira per liter initially before being reduced to, I think, 1,075 naira. While the Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria warns prices could approach 2,000 naira per liter if supply pressures persist, a concern that is amplified by the global tensions as Iran cautious oil could surge to $200 per barrel if instability disrupts the Strait of Hormuz, which handles about 20% of the global crude shipments, prompting the International Energy Agency to consider releasing 400 million barrels of oil to stabilize the global supply. Now, from that, we move straight to the market, where we saw on Wednesday, yesterday, March 11, that investors on the Nigerian exchange take profits again, wiping about 107.6 billion naira off market value, as the oil share index dipped by roughly 167 basis points to close at 195,898.54 points, with selling pressure hitting consumer goods, insurance, and other large stocks, while some dividend yields and growth indices still showed pockets of resilience. We will be looking at those stories and more on today's edition of the Business Lens after the break. My name is Divine Alex. Stay with us. You are welcome back. My name is Divine Alex, and you are still on the Business Lens on Rapid Television, Abuja. And I have with me, the full gang. That's what I'm going to definitely call it. I have Daniel Effa, who is a financial global analyst, business analyst. So thank you and welcome. I think this is the first time that we're seeing this year after you disappeared. And then you all know Adekunle Abiola, who is from Keto Market. We've been doing this together, so that is why I said it's the full gang. And that is why I also said that this is definitely going to be a special edition of today's Business Lens. Now, let's dive into it proper. Now, looking across today's business headlines, one issue seems to connect several of all of them, right? Now, from the energy and market confidence, we have Nigeria that is now relying more on domestic refining, with data from the Nigerian midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory authority showing about 92% of petrol supplied in February, which is good, coming from local refineries. At the same time, there is global tensions that involved Iran, Israel, and the United States that are raising concerns about oil supply disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz, a route that carries roughly 1/5 of the world's crude shipments. And as investors also react to these uncertainties, we are also seeing profit taking on the Nigerian exchange, where about 107 billion naira was wiped off market value on Wednesday, which is yesterday. Now, so the big question becomes, how do global oil politics, Nigeria's energy transition, and investor behavior all connect? I know a lot of people are confused. I think till yesterday, despite the fact that we've been discussing about this, a lot of people do not have knowledge of why the war is actually getting to us, which is going to be the very first question, because we need to be able to assist these people. Because I think not too long ago, I asked somebody, why do you think there is now a spike in transportation? He said, maybe it's the subsidy removal. So you can imagine that we've been talking about this, but maybe because we've not actually given them a proper breakdown to how this connects and why it's affecting their pockets directly. So I'm going to be starting with you, Daniel, since you're our star guest for today. So what can you do that has returned? It's good to have you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I think, so the world is a global place, and one of the most important resource is crude oil. Crude oil is what gives, we generate petrol, diesel, and every energy sources we use for transportation, logistics, industries, and there is a war between the U.S., Iran, and Israel that has escalated, and eventually one of the pathways for shipments, right? Most, like 1/5 of the entire supply of crude oil and other related products pass through Iran, right? There's a particular strait, there's a particular sea that passes through that Iran is just at the center of. Iran is saying, because we are in this war, we are going to leverage that, and nobody is passing here, right? So, and the alternative route is almost like a 1 week you get shipping route, right? And that alone is a big issue, because most of the Middle East itself is one of the biggest source of crude oil conversations globally, and any other related products. So not being able to pass there means that the supplies that come from that particular location would affect everybody that is affected, including people that do not have a need for that particular route. Why? Because the global oil production capacity it's controlled, right? OPEC has a part, and also other non-OPEC members. So because the supply is managed, right, if there is a 20% off, let's assume that the total supply is 10, let's say 10 liters a day, and about 2 is taken out of it, you will need others to fill in extra 8, and that is a very serious number based on the kind of transactions that happen. So that supply disruption is affecting the price of crude, because then people that are speculators will start looking to buy crude. You get quickly buy crude into the future, and that will raise the price. So that's basically what has raising the price of crude in the global market. All right. How is it affecting us? Is because we have protected ourselves from it, right? For example, we can see the US is loading the global supply space with reserve from their reserve. We don't have a reserve, and it's not from the government's point of view. We basically sell our crude directly to our local refinery at the current price. So if you sell at the current price, you will definitely face the shocks, right? However, there's so many dynamics to it. Should it be like that if you have something in large supply and it's suddenly expensive? Can't you suddenly bring the prices down to favor your people? That is another conversation entirely. But the reason why it is expensive at the moment is because of that particular crude oil that is being disrupted. That supply chain has been disrupted.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Let me come to you, Economist Abiola. Now, what would you add to this? Now, let's also remember or note the fact that they say, oh, we are We have refineries, we're supposed to be producing. So why are we feeling this shock?
Oh, well, just to add to what he's saying, or what he has said, apart from the fact that we have crude oil, we have refinery, for the longest time, we've always been importing PMS. And I think last year, Dangote was not meeting up to 30% of the local demand.
Now it was even 45 or thereabout.
Yeah, so I'm even a little bit puzzled how suddenly we are now at 80%,
90
or 90%,
92 actually.
And the figure also for local consumption has gone down from about 50
to
now to 39 million liters per day. So I feel that apart from the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is preventing oil tankers from moving, there are a whole lot of other ships that are also meant to pass. A whole lot. So you find out that other products that are usually raw materials in some industries, some manufacturing companies, are also being held up. So this is also going to create artificial price increase locally. So apart from the fact that PMS is increasing, because I bought at 1,330 yesterday,
Okay.
Apart from the fact that PMS is going up, the cost of other things will also still follow suit. The issue we are having now, or let me say, the reason why we're not feeling it now is because there's this buffer effect. Let's say there's a manufacturing plant that uses urea, for example, as their raw material, and they are not getting any supply, but they already have some they've produced. Once they finish that stock, there will be no stock, so it will now be in the secondary market. It's just like CBN saying, or the bank saying that there's no more dollars. You can only now get dollar from the secondary market. It will be priced based on the availability and based on demand. So what I'm adding is that apart from the fact that PMS will still continue to go up, because one way or the other, apart from Dangote being able to do 90%, it also means that Dangote, to a very large extent, is also a concentration risk.
Yes.
If anything happens to Dangote, then anything can happen locally. Even if they have a shortfall for a day or 2 days, immediately you feel the effect, because that gap that is usually being filled by imported PMS is no more there, whether by policy or by the war going on, is no more there. So PMS might still continue to go up. At the same time, other goods will also increase. Inflation will follow.
So you know that you said you bought 1,003 something.
Yeah,
a lot of people have gone as high as 1,700 naira to get it. 1615. Now this brings me to the question, right? Because we have the industry operators saying that this can push up to 2,000 naira per liter. Because I wanted to get your thoughts on this before we move to why the import licenses was halted. Now, do you think that this is going to happen? Or do you think the 2,000 naira is definitely going to be like the benchmark? At least let people understand how far it's going to stretch. Let's say, okay, it's going to get to 2,000 naira, maybe it's not going to exceed, or do you think it's going to exceed? And then how would you recommend people to find a way, especially for business people? What is business people?
2,000, I even think it's a small number.
Oh, you think it's a small number?
Yeah, and this is the reason.
Okay.
In some parts of US already, we're already having $8 per gallon. If you strip it down to a liter, that's already $2 per liter. $2 is about 2008. Now, you have a refinery locally, or a big refinery locally, that is a global business. So it might get to a stage where the demand outside of Nigeria is so high that even Dangote himself will be tempted to supply the global market than selling at a loss in Nigeria. So many other countries, you're seeing $2, $3 per liter, some $4 per liter. But Nigeria is even a different country entirely. The reason why is because when people buy PMS in US, for example, they use it solely for their cars. They don't have to run generator. They don't have to use it for any other thing. In Nigeria, we use it for multi-faceted stuff, multi-level. So the PMS in Nigeria, the demand goes beyond just driving around. Actually is intertwined into our daily lives. So it might get to a point that the global the global price have gone so much higher that even Dangote will be tempted to say, okay, let me supply you guys small because I'm not making so much money from you. Supply outside one, which might bring about scarcity, which will bring higher costs.
Okay, now let's go to the fact that Nigeria is now suspending petrol import licenses, which is a domestic refining account that for roughly 92%, like I said earlier, of local supply. Now, is this finally the structural shift that Nigeria has been waiting for in downstream oil sector? Would you call it that, Daniel?
I don't think it's a shift. I think it's a reaction to what's happening. So this is the thing. We cannot understand this fully except we go back to the data. MBS says that we imported about 8 trillion last year. That's about $7 billion or thereabout. About maybe $5 or $6 billion was spent last year, and a chunk of the 8 trillion, 3 trillion was just fourth quarter alone. And as at then, Dangote was still doing about maybe 40–45%, right? And prices were still around 800, right? So it's safe to say that the private marketers, one way or the other, have enough in their reserves. Okay. That they basically overbought in the fourth quarter of 2025, right? So fast forward 2026, in fact, they're making more money on us now with this price increase now because
now we'll stop.
Exactly. So now, if you allow for import license, what we don't want right now is a price war. A price war has always showed that it takes the prices higher instead of taking it lower in Nigeria. It's a dynamics. Whatever happened last year, for example, was that the price war happened in the first quarter. They took it lower to a certain point before everybody agreed and they moved the prices up. Right now, we don't want those price shocks. We just want to maintain certain stability in pricing so that everybody goes home happy. So the importers are able to we leave Dangote to do his thing, or they sell whatever they have at a premium price, right? They're making their money. Dangote is also determining his own price, making it. So it is more like, so the decision to actually do that is more of let us keep the peace and maintain the stability.
Apart from
exactly.
Apart from us,
and that is exactly what I was saying earlier.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was saying earlier. That I said that this is the kind of time government steps in to actually intervene in issues like this. Every government of the world is making decisions. Yeah. You guys say, look, we're bringing out our reserve. Everybody wants to make sure that the people don't suffer the brunt. But now, what we are saying instead is that it is not necessarily about us now. It's about the players in the space, keeping them happy. And that is not the core function of government.
Okay. Before we go deeper to discuss the next one, I want us to quickly look at this video from the Iran's government where they said that it's definitely going to go as high as $200 per barrel. So let's watch this one. When we come back, we'll discuss further on that particular one and its effects on our pockets.
شما باید بدانید که نخواهید توانست قیمت نفت و انرژی را با تنفس مصنوعی پایین بیاورید که با گسترش جنگ در منطقه اعلام کردیم منتظر بشکه‌ای $200 باشید چون قیمت نفت تابع امنیت در منطقه است که منشأ ناامنی شما هستید.
Okay, so Iran has warned that oil prices could spike to as high as $200 per barrel if instability disrupts shipments. You know, we mentioned it earlier when we were trying to give a breakdown of why this whole conflict is actually getting to us. Now, given that about the 20% of the global crude flows through them, now, how vulnerable is Nigeria's fuel market to this kind of geopolitical shock? Now, would local refining, right, truly shield Nigeria from global price spikes? That's if we continue to push more, because now they're saying 92 is sourced locally, right? If we are able to push, let's say, over that 92%, and then maybe we have more Dangotes come into the picture, do you think that they're actually going to shield Nigeria from price spikes? And would domestic pump prices still follow international crude prices?
First things first, I think I think this is what the Nigerian government should be looking at. First things first, whatever Iran is saying it's not an economic statement. It's simply them trying to drive the price. Now it's getting clearer that Iran simply wants a price higher so they can sell their own sanctioned oil cheaper. Right? Because before this crisis started, prices were around $67–68 per barrel, right? And they've been sanctioned for a long time. Yeah. And so that means that they've been selling this particular crude maybe for 50 or even lesser. So now they're basically going to be selling 100, and they are still in good profit. Yeah. Right? So it is now looking more like it is a game of interest. So what should a country like Nigeria do? Is the government saying, OPEC, price is $200 per barrel. We can't do that to our people because it affects us also. And we are not going to follow you guys in doing this. it is not a normal time in the global conversation. It is not a normal time. When we go back to normal time, we will follow OPEC's mandate. But for now, that for our people cannot afford to see crude oil prices at 200 or pay 2,000 naira for petrol. It's not a subsidy conversation. It's just selling at the price you want to sell, because if 92% of your local domestic demand for petrol is created by the refinery that is in your borders, then why not just sell at the price to the refinery to the price any price you decide to sell? You don't have to then follow, because now it's not looking anymore like a war that is basically out of you did me this, you did me that. Is a function of pure interest.
Yeah, but sorry to cut you, but if OPEC, it was saying we're in OPEC,
yes,
okay,
and we have to follow the standards
yes.
of OPEC.
Yes.
So if OPEC nations are selling at 200,
yes,
why would Nigeria on their own decide, for example, to sell at 70? Let's even assume they would, because I don't think Nigeria government would, but let's even assume that they would. Why would Nigeria sell at 70 or $80 when global prices from OPEC nations are selling at 200?
So this is.
Do we just disobey OPEC?
So let's do the example of what happened during COVID-19,
okay,
when Russia added to become OPEC plus, right?
Okay.
There was a supply limitation that each of these, and Russia violated the supply limitation. It became an issue with that. It was like it scatter the union. But at the end of the day, because Russia is a big player in this, Russia says no, we have to protect our people in this conversation, and that is exactly what I'm saying now. Because if already, right, if what we do is imports, that means we have less say about where the demand, where the production is coming from, refinery capacity is coming from. But if it is locally, if Dangote refinery is giving us 92% of it, that means virtually everything that we consume here, then we can actually work out a deal that is not on the global level, right? It can sell whatever is left from whatever is producing to the global space, but it should be an arrangement that we should, for once, because every arrangement, every rule, every treaty would always have an exception, particularly when there's a chaotic period, right? Some laws don't apply when there's war. Exactly, laws, yeah. Exactly. So this is that kind of time, because if Iran is saying 200, that means it is ready to take it to any level. That's what it means, right? Because all has never hit 200 in my lifetime. So if it is $200 per barrel, that means that this is extreme chaos for the entire globe, right? So if a country is bringing out its reserves, that means that is its own power to manipulate the market. We should also be able to do our own part to also manipulate the market. We can't just be at the receiving end of it all the time. And that's what I'm saying, that the government has to step in now to say this particular portion of crude, right? If you are the IOCs, for this period, there's a chaos in the globe. We cannot also afford to do this.
I agree that we should actually sell at a cheaper price to the refineries. I don't want to mention Dangote alone, because there are other modular refineries. And sell at the particular price and let them know that for this period, this is an extraordinary situation. We are selling at so price, so that your refined product can also be sold at this price.
Exactly.
You cannot go beyond this price.
You know,
sorry to cut you. The issue now for me is, are we going to do that? Because we've seen in time past. Yeah, because we've seen in time past that when it's time to profit grab, the Nigerian government, irrespective of which administration, will rather profit grab and promise subsidies or promise cushioning effects than allow the price to go down from source, which is the best source of subsidy. The best source of subsidy is for you to say, okay, the crude oil will come at a cheap price, so that nobody has any excuse. But if you're saying you're going to subsidize, then a whole new platform is open for even corrupt, people to take that subsidy and not apply it to the people getting the PMS at the end of the day.
Now, let's also look at how this is going to affect businesses and inflation, because if we say that if industry operators like Petron is saying it could go as high as 2,000, and you now, from your own analysis, you're looking at it like it's going to go beyond 2,000.
1 second. Oil was at 665.
Yes.
Right? And we're selling locally at 800. 800 and something. So 900. So quick maths. Now we're saying at 200. That's times 3. 800 times 3 is what? It's 2004. 2004. So I think it's just normal maths.
So now, if we are now looking at the fact that it's going to go higher than 2,000 naira.
Might, yeah.
Now, how is this going to affect our inflation? How is this going to affect small businesses? We have to actually look at that.
Everybody should invest in stock and sit at home now. Nobody should go to work again.
But it's not going to work for us now.
If I had bought an electric car, I would have looked like a genius.
But
in
then,
this,
but
in
then
this.
it will be solar, because then what light are you using?
I don't mind putting solar even on the roof of the car. I'll drive it up and down.
Actually, and there's actually a trending video of someone carrying a generator powered,
Because the power is really
yes,
bad,
because
sense,
we also have to look towards that axis, right? Because now a lot of people are complaining. Usually around this period, there's usually heat. We know that
the heat is so much,
the electricity is usually sometimes maybe 60-40. But right now, it's giving 70-30, and we are on the 30%. So a lot of people are already complaining. So, and now, like I said, I think it was on Monday when we were discussing, we had some business people come out to ask what's going on. And as at that time, nobody knew that they were going to buy petrol the next day for up to 1,500 naira, 1,600 naira at that time. But as at now, it has gone as high as 1,006, 1,007, 1,004, 1,003. So how do you think this is actually going to affect businesses? And how would you advise them to actually maybe take cushion to assist them to be better prepare, brace up more for when it gets to 2,400 or maybe 2,500 in the future?
It's going to be crazy. And what's going to even make it crazier is that the rainy seasons are here. And rainy season means less sunlight. Less sunlight means less solar power. So on one hand, you're not getting power from the grid. On another hand, you cannot run your generator because PMS now is higher. Then on the third hand, even though it's two hands, on the third hand now, there is no solar power. So power generation is going to be very, very crazy, except for small business owners. So what I see for businesses that can actually do remote, we might now be seeing more of remote work than people actually, moving up and down. Because if you're earning 100,000 naira, how do you want to go to the office every day for 30 days? If, for example, Kuba to Wuse is 2,005, it's how much are you being paid? So we might see companies that are actually move to remote. You will see more people moving to remote and just staying in one place because that's the way they can conserve their expenditure. But businesses are going to be hit so much because I am in an office where we are serviced. I still have inverter, and I'm in the city center of the capital of Nigeria. So you can now scale that and say, okay, what about somebody in Akure? What about somebody in Uyo? What about somebody in Oyo State? That they are not even in a so-called privileged place, and I am there, and I am still having 3 layers of power generation, and I'm still having power issues. So it's going to really hit businesses very hard, and maybe we'll now start seeing still increase in prices of some services.
Which is the inflation we're talking about.
Inflation, if this doesn't end anytime soon, inflation would...
Inflation is in the room with us, in this newsroom with us.
might do serious numbers. And this is, but I think I talked about it on Monday. We the citizens are the only ones, right? They are permitted to watch US, Iran, and Israel wars and start debating. The policy makers that we have should be making decisions, should be planning, should be saying what is the worst case scenario. If Iran, I heard Qatar oil minister talk about it on Friday, saying we are seeing oil get to 150. Iran, that is a major, that is affected, that is a war, that is a recipient of the war, active member in the war, is saying 200. So that means that they don't plan to unlock the Strait of Hormuz.
But by now, I feel that some Nigerian officials should have started coming out
to tell us.
Yeah, so granting interviews and say, this is our plan, this is what we are looking at. In case this goes like this is what we'll do. In case it does not go like this is what we'll do.
To assist people.
Let's even be informed.
Exactly. It gives an idea of what, how do you want to approach it. Because you cannot just be quiet. You cannot, because we have the coordinating minister of economy that should have at least granted at least 2 or 3 different interviews.
There's so many ministries that should come out that this is affecting.
Civilian governor should not, of course, should not be, because they just finished a monetary policy committee meeting, which is, he has already spoke about that. But the coordinating minister of the economy is really pivotal in this conversation. What are we doing? That is what will grant business confidence. Okay, this is what how our government wants to respond to this, right? Even the president has even come out to say this is what we are doing for our people. So it shows you that it is not time for government to sit down. It's time for government to actually act. We cannot be reactive to this issue.
You have to
because
be proactive.
we were reactive during COVID-19. things that the private sector contributed to give the populace were ordered for as long as possible.
Yes, some were still distributed recently.
Same thing with Ukraine crisis. We were also reactive. Now we shouldn't be doing the same thing again and expecting that inflation will just go up and just come down by itself because we are holding or changing the figures. That is not what we need at the moment. One
easy way I say that the government can help, and I've seen it in time past in other countries, is that if you have small businesses, they can apply for some form of discount on their electricity. So the company is, okay, you are so and so SME, you can go and apply and submit all your documents, and they will tag your meter number and give you a discount, so that just a way to ease your business, and it can continue for as long as possible. Why? Because we are the one generating our own electricity. So the government is at liberty to say, okay, let's reduce for now. So if instead of me paying, okay, the bill they brought last week was 306,000 naira for a small office space, say we are on Bandi or whatever, okay, no problem. But now this might even go higher, and the power is not even there. So at the end of the day, if you now say, okay, instead of paying this 306,000, pay 100,000, pay 150,000, then you are already helping that business indirectly. That by saying, okay, this is the government. I can go anywhere and say, oh, see what the government is doing for us. But the government has to come out and say these things. Every ministry have their own way in which they can actually chime in and say, this is what we are going to do in this extraordinary situation. But once situation gets back to normal, everybody carry your cross.
I get that. Okay, thank you so much. But before we go, do you have any last submission to the conversation that we had here? Something that you want to add, or tell people, or even the policymakers, even though we've talked extensively on that.
I think the conversation is simple. We cannot leave our people exposed to this issue. It doesn't look like it's going to end soon. The US president says they are projecting a 4-week period, but Iran is ready to go as long as possible, and we cannot afford another COVID-19 crisis to any country, not talk of Nigeria, that is still trying to get itself back, right? So it is time to basically act. People need to also feel confidence starts from the sentiment first before the actual action, right? So people need to know that the government is actually there for them. To actually, okay, this is what the government looks at, because then the easiest way to touch anybody's life right now is the energy, whether through electricity or those two things, and those two things are within the grasp of the government to solve. And it's important that private sector conversations with the government this is kind of time you should have them, because they are the ones that will basically tell you where the real issues are.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking in that line, because in any country there are things that I see as national security. One is food, one is protection of your borders, another thing is energy. So going forward, Nigeria has to start actively decentralizing. I know we have actually decentralized power generation, but it's not enough. If our power generation is still loop-sided, that is why we're having this power shortage, because maybe there's shortage in gas or whatever, or water, or there's no rainy season and all that. So if we can tackle energy security, food security, securing our borders, you'll find out that the country would be more stable, because these are security issues.
Okay, thank you so much, Economist Abiola, and thank you, Daniel Efa, for being on the show today. And thank you to you who is on the other end watching us right now. That is how we draw the curtains on the Business Lens on Rapid Television Abuja today. My name is Divine Alex. Keep the date again with us on Monday, 11 a.m. And don't forget to stay with Rapid TV. Bye for now.